Hi, everyone. Nicole Christina here with Carrie Luderin, and we are going to be talking today about small wins during COVID. We're going to be talking about some really manageable little micro decluttering things that you can do to help yourself kind of save your sanity. And I'm a psychotherapist. Carrie is a professional organizer. And at the end, we're going to talk about a course that we've developed together that's a little unusual. It talks about the logistics and the practical tips, but also the emotional pieces of how do you handle your clutter? How do you deal with the overwhelm of big boxes, sort of spewing out all stuff that you've kind of packed away in the garage. So we take a kind of a multi-level approach to it, and people have found it really helpful. But first, we're going to talk about this idea of small wins during COVID. And I've been talking to my clients. We're doing teletherapy now, and most of them are saying they feel a real lack of motivation. And that even though we have all this time, we're not uh, learning multiple languages or doing things that we think we should be doing. And what I've been saying to people is that to remind them we're in a pandemic, and of course we're going to be feeling off, and just to really allow yourself to feel off, that's fine. But there are some tips and there are some things that we can bring in that can be helpful. And so Carrie and I are going to talk about those today. Hopefully that'll give you some ideas of how to structure your day that you just feel a little bit more balanced, maybe even a little bit more hopeful, maybe more like yourself. So let's start with something that's really important for people. And my clients have been laughing and saying, I can schedule anytime next week because I have nothing but time.
Right, I
And
can relate to that.
yeah, so it's like this, it's almost like every day Sunday, except not really,
Yeah, but
because
not in a fun way, in
not
like
in
a
a
Groundhog Day kind of way.
not in a fun way, in a really, like, what would you call it? Tedious, sort of odd way.
Hmm.
And now, at least where we are, Carrie and I are in upstate New York in Onondaga County, and we have an even odd shopping day. Kind of situation. So depending on when your birthday falls is when you can shop. And that's a very strange thing, because I thought, wow, today's my shopping day, but I didn't really need anything. And I don't
It's
know. Are you
funny you
finding
mentioned
that?
that.
Yeah.
I actually forgot about that guideline because I haven't been shopping in weeks. I've been doing home delivery, and so I just
Hmm.
kind of have blocked that out. So yeah, the whole leaving the house is really it's been very minimal these days.
It's been minimal, and
Mhm.
it's, a couple times I've had to go to the bank to make deposits, and I thought, wow, woohoo, this is my my big
I
day
know
out,
driving in the car feels so weird now.
doesn't it? The
Yeah.
whole thing, and it is really odd. So
Mhm.
people are talking about this sort of amorphous, like, kind of blob of time, and we do need structure. Most mammals like a little structure, and I'm sure people who are parents will agree that their kids do usually better with structure. But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get out your Google Calendar and say from 9 to 10 I'm going to clean my kitchen, unless that really works for you. But some general structure seems to work. The other thing about having these little micro decluttering sessions is the idea of, at least we feel like we're kind of accomplishing something. And I'm embarrassed to say how good I felt after decluttering my junk drawer the other day.
Right?
I was like, no crumbs, no old rubber bands that don't work. It was like,
Right. That
uh,
one drawer
uh,
I've like
it,
has changed
it
my life.
it changed my life. I felt like really unnecessarily proud about it, but like it's
Right.
something you can point to.
Yeah, yeah. And I do find that the non-structured time I can totally relate to this feeling of not being motivated right now, just because it seems like everything can be done later because there's so much
So
later.
much later. Yes,
And so it's
exactly.
easy to be like, oh, maybe I'll scroll on Facebook a little longer because I can do that thing, later or tomorrow or the day after. It's like
Or on May
this
15th.
endless future that we don't know when it's going to end. So that is a very weird thing, psychologically, I think, for us to process. So yeah, I even in my pre-COVID days when I was seeing organizing clients and stuff, I think that those small projects can really be they can lift us up and they can make us feel like we've accomplished something, even though maybe we didn't spend the entire Saturday cleaning out the garage, but you can say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I did get this done. And those are tangible things too. I think there's so much uncertainty now, and that having like this physical transformation, even if it is just a drawer or one cabinet that you can look at and be like, okay, there's an actual thing that happened. Because so much
Exactly.
of what's happening now is really, you know, it's intangible.
Exactly. This little sense of accomplishment. And, I want to talk also a little bit about control because we're in New York State and Governor Cuomo said, when is this going to be over? I don't know. There's something lovely about the honesty, but then he's like, but you're my elected official.
Right.
Certainly, you know.
It's a brutal statement to
You
hear
gotta give
as,
me more
you're
than
like,
that. And so the sense of a total lack of control, and that does not feel good. And especially if people have had some experience with a little bit of anxiety in the past, to say, yeah, we have no idea when life will return to normal. And by the way, it probably will never be the same normal. That's not that's not helpful for
no, that's
people who
very, I mean, as a perfectionist control freak kind of person, normally, this is like, stretching my limits of just, oh, we have no idea. It's, this idea of surrendering to the situation
Mm.
is so hard. And it's really like the only option we have, but it's something that I'm certainly struggling with. So,
Oh, I think that we all are. And
mhm.
and then what I'm finding is they'll struggle and then maybe it'll be okay. And then they'll be like, oh, I got this. And then they'll really struggle again.
Yeah,
Um,
I've spoken to a lot of friends and we've all agreed that it's like this emotional roller coaster, just like what you're saying.
mhm.
We have days where we're like, yeah,
That's
I'm
okay.
winning at quarantine today. I got some things done and I went for a walk and I ate a
Yeah,
healthy
bake some
meal.
sourdough bread.
Right. I feel good. And then the next day you're just like, in the fetal position, like what is happening? I'm
Mhm.
terrified. I'm worried about my family. And it's that back and forth that I don't know, maybe as a therapist you can give us some insights as to how to navigate the mood swings through this.
Yeah, I mean, my best advice is just that to acknowledge that that's absolutely normal in a situation like this and not try to get all analyzing what's wrong with me. One minute I'm up, one minute I'm down. I think that is absolutely a normal reaction to a really abnormal situation. One thing I just wanted to state is that I'm very aware, and I know you are too, Carrie, of the how privileged we are. I mean, I'm working entirely from home and I'm not in the situation where I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my rent. So I just really want to put that out there and say that I am very aware of the privilege, and when we're talking about small wins and during COVID and doing decluttering, the assumption is you're not in the fetal position because you don't know what your economic status is going to be. So I just wanted to
Right,
put that
right.
out
And
there.
home is not a safe place for everyone. And
Mhm.
that is something to keep in mind, and that what this looks like for everyone is really different. And yeah, I think that's an important point to make, that,
Mhm.
one person's small win is going to be unachievable for other people. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's just the reality right now.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So we're talking about this idea of kind of doing manageable things that help. And I'll throw a couple other tips in there. And on my website, zestfulaging.com, I have a PDF on tips to maintain mental health. But a couple other things just to think about is even if you're sitting on your porch I just want you to get outside for 15 minutes it doesn't have to be with a Fitbit. I'm not asking you to count steps. I'm asking you to get fresh air and some sun, unless you live in New York State, upstate
Right.
New York,
Like
that we don't
yesterday when it was snowing.
yeah, and I was out in the hail, and
Yeah.
that was really
You're braver than I am, Nicole.
yeah, I did do a Facebook post saying it's really hard to like Syracuse right now, and I'm getting
Yeah.
pelted in the face. But just a couple things to keep in mind. And these, again, are all these little small things that can really make a difference. Um, the other piece of this is, distraction is okay. Psychotherapists are really good at not wanting us to distract and really feeling our feelings and having self-awareness and all that. That's all great. But again, we're in a pandemic. So a little distraction is actually a fine thing. I mean, if you find that you're completely in another universe and you haven't moved from your couch because you're watching 12 hours of Netflix, then that's another story. But I do find that these small tasks, and I would put baking in this too, because you have to focus, but just doing a drawer, I have this big Cuisinart that I was using for cooking, and it's just sitting out on the counter. And at some point, you need to kind of prioritize your counter space. So even just putting all that low use stuff up on a high shelf yesterday, I had to drag a chair out. It just feels good to have that put away. Took me literally 8 minutes, and it just made me feel like I have a little more control. I was distracted from thinking, oh my goodness, how are people going to deal? And this is so scary. This little micro sense of accomplishment and the
Mhm.
sense of if we could pepper our day with these small wins, I think that's really important.
I agree. And I think you brought up an important point. And, I've been thinking about how differently we're using our homes through this right now. And especially things like cooking. I mean, I hear from so many people. First of all, you have to eat all your meals at home, which it can be a big transition. And people
Mhm.
are turning to cooking as, hobby, as you say, as a positive distraction from this. But you may be using a room like your kitchen a lot differently than you did before, this all happened. So doing a little thinking about that. And like you said, even just moving, the appliance that's not getting use out of the way. And maybe there are appliances or gadgets or tools that you are using a lot more now that you didn't before. Maybe
That you're
getting
baking bread every day, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. You need your rolling pins and stuff. And maybe they were in the back of the drawer, rethinking how we use our homes right now, because it probably is really different. And even just making those small adjustments. It doesn't mean you have to like rearrange every piece of furniture, but, do you have a workspace that has a supportive chair? If you're going to be sitting there, for how many hours
Mhm.
a day? Is there a chair somewhere else in the house that you can move in? Are there things that you're using in the kitchen that could be more easily accessible to you now, and some things that maybe are not? I mean, it occurs to me we're not really entertaining in our homes during this period, other than
Mhm.
entertaining ourselves, but we're not having guests over. So, if you used to do that a lot and you have a lot of big platters or, different things that you would use for
The
those
fondue pot, you put the
yeah,
fondue
that
pot
stuff,
away.
the punch bowl, does anybody even have that anymore? Probably not, but you know what I mean? The things that are not relevant to the current situation, maybe they
Mhm.
can be put away. And even just just to streamline your space a little bit and make it a little easier and a little visually, less cluttered, I think can do a lot to, maintaining a positive outlook through this too.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about being aware of what you need right now, today, even though we're in this really wacky time. I think it's very self-respectful. Like, I need a clean space. I need this chair that suits me. I need to have a place to put when I'm working, different files, that I can get my hands on them.
Right.
And lighting, I think, is really important too.
Hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So, what are the essential tasks to you right now, and how can you make your home support those tasks, even if those tasks are, you know, watching Netflix? Does everybody in the house have like a comfortable seat when maybe everyone's watching TV together now, and you didn't used to do that, so
Mhm.
you might want to rearrange a few things so that it's just a cozier space for you right now. And it
That's
doesn't,
really lovely. I
yeah, and it
love that
doesn't have
idea.
to it doesn't have to look good right now because, like I said, no one's coming to visit.
Mm.
We don't
It
have to be thinking so much in terms of the design and the aesthetics, but like, what's the function that you need right now? What do you have on hand that can help with that?
Uh-huh.
And what are kind of the small things that you can do to
You're
kind of.
talking about making our space user-friendly during a pandemic.
Absolutely. What's
Mhm.
bringing you comfort right now? Is it a hobby,
Mhm.
Nicole? I know you're into knitting.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are picking up hobbies. I know my mom is doing some sewing and she hasn't really been delving into as much lately. So, creating space for those activities, and what are the supplies and things so that it can be fun and easy to do. And it's not like, oh, I have to go drag all that stuff out of the closet every time I want to do that hobby.
Mhm. Mhm. And we have Antonia Rolls, who was a guest of Zestful Aging podcast.
Hmm.
Super lovely Antonia. She's from the UK, and she's doing a lot of art.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, she does a lot of art, and she has a lot of stuff about aging zestfully. And she's one of my favorite guests. So, is there anything you want to say, Carrie, about what might be a little different about our course? I know, you're obviously a professional organizer. You and I have taught this live before.
Right.
Tell me what you think our course might offer folks who are stuck at home and, um, needing a little bit of guidance.
Sure. So, for anyone that's not familiar, Nicole and I collaborated to create a course. It's called Too Much Stuff. It's actually a video course, it's video content as well as a printable workbook. And it's really about helping people declutter, as we say, middle age and beyond. So I think, we created this to address the needs of people who maybe have gone through some big life transitions or are going through those now, or maybe they're on the horizon, things like kids leaving home or retiring, or, any number of things. And,
Mhm.
like we've already been talking about, how do you create a space at home that supports your life as it exists now, or that supports you wherever it is that you're heading. So I think that's a distinction in what we've done, is that it's not just addressing like, oh, it's a mess right now, what do I do? But like we are providing some tools for people to do a little self-reflection as part of the course. And it's not, it's not in a difficult way, but just some opportunity to do a little journaling about your thoughts on, what does my life look like now, and what are the changes that are happening? And hello, Sparky.
Yes.
Nicole's dog is joining us.
Yes, he is.
So I think that's a distinction.
Mhm.
The other thing, I think, because we've teamed up for this, you're getting kind of my expertise, which is the practical side of how do I actually declutter? What are, some insights
The
about,
steps.
yeah, the steps, and like what are the questions I can ask myself as I'm going through the process. But then on your side of things, and the videos are really split half and half, that you're addressing the emotional stuff that comes up when we're trying to do this, and
Mhm.
how to address those feelings, because it's true that our stuff is just stuff, but it's also kind of infused with the emotions of maybe a certain time period of our life when we accumulated those things, or maybe they're associated with people who are no longer in our life. And,
Mm-hmm.
and doing that, going through that stuff can bring up those feelings. And I think a lot of times that's what, those are the obstacles that prevent us from getting rid of some things.
I
So,
think that's really well said. And I think another way of saying it is it's so much more complex than I'm going to donate this, I'm going to throw away this, and then I'm going to take this to the tailor. Because
right,
if it was that easy, we would all have just masterpieces of
right.
closets.
Nobody would
Everything would
have a
fit.
mess.
Yeah, and no one would have a mess. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of pieces that go into making our clutter unmanageable. And
Hmm.
so we try to, I think we would do a nice job talking about all the elements, not just like, okay, you have a lot of stuff. Now what are you going
Yes.
to do with it? And I think we also get to the why, what's causing this and why is it hard to get rid of it.
Right.
And
Right.
I like that we also bring self-compassion to it. So it's not like, look what a slob I am. I said I was going to
Right.
clean this desk out and still has my third grade poetry. What's wrong with me? I like the piece of, this kind of makes sense because third grade was an important year for me, or
Right.
whatever. And how am I going to feel when I throw stuff away from my past? What's that going to be like? So I think it's got this nice like holistic uh,
Yeah,
vibe.
I think that's a good term to use. And yeah, we really worked hard to address, as Nicole's saying, kind of the full picture of why it's hard, both from the practical side and from the more emotional side. And Nicole gives some great information within the course about dealing with those things, and even some exercises that you can do in terms of when you start having those feelings, what can you do to kind of bring that level down and bring the stress
Mhm.
down? And, it allows you to learn a few tools that, can help you through this process. It also occurs, um, really useful for all of us, just in terms of what we're going through in everyday life, like in terms of, calming ourselves down and reducing stress. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So I think what we're all about is doing this really intentionally and thoughtfully, and not just going in there and saying, okay, I'm making piles. It's just,
right.
we're humans and we're a lot more complicated than that. I did want to share, I don't know if you saw this, Carrie, a really funny Facebook post about Maria Kondo or Marie Kondo. Someone said, I bet she really wishes she had more stuff now. Which I thought was sort of
That
cute.
is too funny.
Are
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are before we wrap up, are there any tips that you'd like to give our listeners to just get a little bit of a toe in the water as
Sure.
we are trying to have some small wins during COVID?
Yeah, I am actually doing a decluttering challenge. I do it twice a year. I have a private Facebook group, which I can link to on this video. But the challenge is called 5-5-30, and it's a really easy decluttering challenge, and I think one that kind of might serve us well during this current situation. So the idea is to spend 5 minutes a day, look around your house, and find 5 things that you can part with, and then you repeat that process for 30 days. And again, it was sort of based on this idea of, having small wins and just doing a little bit consistently can lead to a big result. And I think that
Mhm.
might be an easier thing to do now, given, everything that we're dealing with, rather than, if I told you tomorrow, like, go find 150 things to get rid of, that would feel too overwhelming. And you'd be like, no. But if I
Right.
said, can you find 5 things, like 5 spices in the spice rack, or, and really making it easy for yourself. But if you do it, even if you don't do it every day for the 30 days, even if you did it every other day, that's still making progress. And so I think just setting really micro goals for yourself through this, if that's, if you feel like you want to address that right now.
It's funny because I know the last time you did that challenge, there was one of your entries, and I was thinking, you're not going to throw that away, are you? 'Cause
I know.
it was something I wanted.
Right, right. Well, I have a Facebook group, and I encourage folks in the group to post pictures of the things they're getting rid of as an accountability exercise.
Mhm.
And yeah, sometimes I have to jump in because people will be like, "Oh, I really like that thing that person posted," and I'm like, "No, no, that's not the point of
It's
that."
not supposed to be kind of a swap, right?
Right, right. We're supposed to be all getting rid of things. So, but I think one thing to recognize now, if you do feel, motivated to declutter or to do some organizing in your house, most donation places are not taking donations currently. So
Right.
that can be a little bit problematic, but if you can create a space in your home that's kind of out of sight, that you can have as sort of the holding place for those things, just so you don't end up with a big pile of stuff, and also that you don't start rethinking the decisions because you're looking at them all the time. But I find like out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, maybe set aside a little corner of the garage or basement or something for now. And then once things open back up, you can load them up and get them out.
Can you imagine what the lines are going to be like?
I,
Uh,
I can't imagine anything. I
have we?
feel
I can't
so.
imagine it. Have you? Have
What
you?
is what
That
is
it just
life going to be
occurred.
like? I don't know.
That just occurred to me. The salvation, and I haven't been thrifting in a while. So,
Oh,
oh my gosh,
you're
that
gonna
line.
have an amazing thrifting experience when we're on
Yeah.
the other side of this.
So, I just wanted to also mention this for folks who are interested in the subject. I interviewed the author. He's a best-selling author, and his name is Adam Minter. And his book is Secondhand, and you may have seen it. It was very widely reviewed. It is a fascinating book, even if you're not really into decluttering like Carrie and I are. He basically follows the lines in the thrift store, and then he follows the stuff all throughout the world, and he ends up in all kinds of places, Africa, India, and he just sort of follows the path of where our donations go, and it is absolutely fascinating. So I would recommend that if you like listening to things like that. It's on
That does sound great.
zestfulaging.com.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was thinking that maybe the title of this should be Decluttering Light.
I think that's a good idea because, I fully recognize that we're not feeling our best in this for a lot of
Mhm.
different reasons, mentally, emotionally, physically, probably. And yeah, let's not add to our stress by setting,
Mhm.
lofty goals that we then don't have the energy or the mental capacity to handle right now. But yeah, if we can just kind of chip away at this a little bit at a time, I think it might help, and it might also make our spaces a little easier to live in since we are stuck inside most of the time
Stuck
too.
inside.
Yeah.
So do you want to give the details of this lovely course called Too
Yeah.
Much Stuff?
So
Talk
too
about
much
how
stuff.
our listeners can find it and access it.
Absolutely. So we will put a link to the we have a page which gives you a lot more information about what's included. But basically, it's 4 video lessons. They are kind of bite size. It's not going to be a huge time commitment for each
Mhm.
lesson. I have had a few questions about the course, and people have asked, do I have lifetime access to the material? And the answer is yes. And also, is it something I can do? Can I do it at my own pace? And that is also the case as well. So once
Mhm.
you purchase the course, you can then log in and out and maybe do a lesson. There's a workbook, as I said, with some
Mhm.
exercises, and you can kind of jump in and out at your own speed. So that also makes it. I think it works well within this framework of decluttering light, and you can kind of take it as you feel motivated.
I think also, and maybe this is a funny way to say it, but it's got sort of this gentle and forgiving vibe where, we're
Absolutely.
very much accepting of like, yeah, we all have this uh clutter. We've got reasons why we don't want to declutter. It's complicated, it's difficult, and this isn't about shaming you into going through and feeling like a failure. It's just about
Right.
trying to help you feel better, more in control, and be more intentional about also what you buy. And it's a very complicated subject, and
Mhm.
I think we're really hoping to bring some value to people's lives.
Absolutely. So we will link to that in the comments below this video, and I'll also link to my 5-5-30 decluttering challenge if people want more information about that. And maybe Nicole, we can also include your tips for our current situation.
Maintaining mental health.
Yes, I'm definitely going to go run and download that.
That sounds
Yeah,
good. It sounds good. So thank you so much for watching. We're really excited about helping you through this time in whatever way we can. I'd love you to look at the course, but try the other tips, and we're rooting for you.
absolutely. All right. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Carrie. Bye-bye.
Bye.